Is Ron DeSantis really a threat to Donald Trump? After this video, we're closer to an answer than ever before. From the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, Governor Ron DeSantis faced scrutiny for his handling of the crisis. Critics argue that his approach lacked swift and decisive action, potentially putting the lives of Floridians at risk. His decision to reopen the state quickly, despite rising case numbers, drew sharp criticism. Additionally, his refusal to implement statewide mask mandates and his clash with local governments over their authority to enact COVID-19 restrictions further fueled the controversy. As the pandemic continues to evolve, DeSantis' response remains a polarizing topic, raising questions about his leadership during a time of crisis. Response to protests and civil unrest. Governor Ron DeSantis has faced criticism for his response to protests and civil unrest. His handling of the Black Lives Matter movement and calls for racial justice has been divisive. Some argue that DeSantis has prioritized law and order over addressing systemic issues of racism and inequality. His stance on these matters has led to further division among communities and raised questions about his ability to empathize with marginalized groups. As protests continue across the country, DeSantis' response to civil unrest remains a hot-button issue that defines his leadership style and values. Polarizing education policies. Governor Ron DeSantis' education policies have been a subject of heated debate. One of the key issues is his support for expanding school voucher programs, which allows parents to use public funds for private school tuition. Critics argue that this diverts resources from public schools and disproportionately benefits wealthier families. Additionally, DeSantis has been vocal about his opposition to critical race theory being taught in schools, stating that it promotes a divisive and politically motivated agenda. These policies have sparked intense discussions about equity in education and the role of the government in shaping young minds. Environmental policy and climate change stance. Governor Ron DeSantis' environmental policy and stance on climate change have been a source of controversy. Critics argue that his actions do not align with his rhetoric on protecting the environment. Despite promising to prioritize conservation during his campaign, DeSantis has faced scrutiny for his ties to industries that contribute to pollution and his decision to appoint individuals with questionable environmental track records to key positions. Additionally, concerns have been raised about his failure to address the impact of climate change in a state particularly vulnerable to its effects. These controversies have cast doubt on DeSantis' commitment to environmental protection and raised questions about his priorities and values. Voting laws and allegations of voter suppression. Governor Ron DeSantis has faced significant backlash for his stance on voting laws and allegations of voter suppression. Critics argue that his support for restrictive voting measures disproportionately impacts minority communities and suppresses their voices in the democratic process. The controversies surrounding his wife's involvement in a multi-million-dollar online shopping business have also raised questions about conflicts of interest and his commitment to transparency. With a net worth of $300,000, DeSantis' financial ties have further fueled concerns about the fairness and integrity of Florida's elections. These controversies have sparked intense debates about voter rights and democracy in the state. This has been the top controversies of Ron DeSantis. Let us know in the comments if he will beat Donald Trump.